My name is Ion, and I've come over from London, as Yoni said, and it's an honour to be here and to present something about my work. I don't know if Yoni told you why I'm here? No?
Just started.
Just started. Okay, so I am here on the second part of a research fellowship. I went to the United States first, and now I'm in Israel to really visit a huge range of programs that work with animals in therapeutic settings, and to see what they do and to learn from them, and to see how we can improve our work in the UK. I think there's a lot of this work happening all over the world, but at the moment it exists a lot in isolation, and there are lots of people trying to bring it together and work collaboratively, and this is, I guess, my attempt of doing that. So, but today I'm just going to talk to you about the work that I do in London. It's quite different to some of the work I've seen here, and quite similar to some of the other work I've seen. So, yeah. Do I need to pause for translation?
אתם צריכים הפסקות מדי פעם לתרגום?
No? Okay, so I used to work as an English teacher, so hopefully I've learned how to speak to people where English isn't the first language. And everyone here seems to speak amazing English, whereas my Hebrew is terrible. So I think first of all I'm just going to show you a short video. It's just a couple of minutes, but hopefully it gives you a feel of what we do. This is the name of my project, Furry Tales, and here we go.
Again, go.
Oh. Enjoy it. Maybe we need a bit more sound.
Sound?
What is that? I think it's taking a while to load.
Long time to load it.
Yeah.
So let it just get loaded.
So whilst it's loading, I'll just give you a bit of the context. This project is based at City Farm in London, which I'll tell you about more later. But as I don't know how many of you have been to London, maybe put your hand up. Okay, great. So you know that London is very grey, very urban. There are some beautiful green spaces, but actually for those of us who live there, it can be a very oppressive environment. A lot of huge, big buildings, a lot of concrete, and day to day, you don't really come into that much contact with green spaces unless you really choose to make that part of your lifestyle. However, there are about 13 city farms and gardens spread around London, which if you know where to find them, it's like discovering a secret world. And I was very lucky to discover this one in East London, and that's where this project is based. That might be enough. Furry Tales. Furry Tales exists to eliminate social isolation and loneliness in older people in East London. It's a project that I set up at Stepney City Farm.
We need to give you more time.
Yeah?
Yeah, the internet maybe.
Okay, maybe I'll come back to this.
You can, if you want, you can turn off the HD and it will load faster.
Ah,
Yeah.
there. So now that's alright.
Yeah, you can start already, or you think to wait a bit more?
Or I can come back to it a bit. If that's
Okay.
easier. Maybe that's better. I don't know. Yeah? Like this.
Yeah? Yeah, that sounds good now. And this is still being quite slow, so.
Still slow.
Okay, so I wanted to start with the video, but it's taking a while, so I will just start with the presentation and we'll come back. For now, you'll just have to rely on my words. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so the name of the project that I run is called Furry Tales. And really our aim is to connect people with animals and with nature, and then ultimately with each other. I'm sure as many of you know, if you have pets or work with animals, that really they're just a catalyst to help us connect with each other and kind of connect with that deeper part of ourselves. So that's what the aim of the project is. But specifically, we work with people over the age of 60, with elders in the community. So originally our kind of tagline was that we combat social isolation, and we try to eliminate loneliness. This has been knocked off the tagline partly because of the challenges of measuring our impact and how we really kind of quantify what we do, but I'll come back to that later. So in terms of what we do, we're based at a city farm in London, and we run animal handling and nature-based sessions for people over the age of 60. That could be, I mean, that's obviously a huge range of people, so it could be people, individuals who are living in London, still living at home on their own and coming to the farm to spend time with us there. It could be people who are in daycare centres or care homes, and we might need to go to them, or it could be a mixture of both. Furry Tales exists to eliminate social isolation and loneliness in older people in East London. It's a project that I set up at Stepney City Farm, and basically we work with daycare centres, residential homes and older people's organisations to deliver animal handling sessions. That could be outreach, so going to a residential home or visiting a daycare centre, or it could be on site here at the farm. It's opening up the farm to a completely different group in our community and a group.
I'm sorry about this.
We are more sorry about this.
It is loading. You can watch it on our website, so I'll show you the website at the end and you can watch it, but not on...
It wouldn't necessarily, that we wouldn't provide anything for otherwise, really, especially if people aren't able to get out and about as easily and are feeling isolated at home. The point of Furry Tales is to prevent loneliness, really. That's, I guess, the main aim of it, and to bring different generations together to share their stories. Animals are a huge part of that because they provide touch and physical comfort, but actually what they really are is a catalyst for people to then have conversations and to really share themselves and connect with each other. Yeah, it's just brilliant. We all love it and hope that I only never leave.
I advise anybody to think and learn a little bit more about the nature, what's around us, and what's on this planet gives us a lot of things, and happiness.
Okay, thank you for your patience and showing that. I just really wanted you to be able to see a little bit of the environment at the farm and what it's like when we bring people there. Okay. Okay, so just going through how the project works. like I said, we have two main types of delivery. So we have outreach sessions and on-site sessions at the farm. In the outreach sessions, we deliver them to residential homes. So often we're working with people in their 70s, their 80s, but I guess the main common factor is that they tend to be much more advanced levels of dementia, people who need a lot more care and possibly a lot more one-to-one engagement. It also means that our sessions are much more about the sensory engagement. Touch becomes really, really important. Actually having a heartbeat close to yours, having the presence of another living being. So the outreach sessions can be quite calm in nature. There's a group of us who goes. I deliver the sessions along with a team of about 4 volunteers, which changes all the time. And we take guinea pigs, rabbits, and sometimes a few bantam chickens into the homes. And it's really just an opportunity for a group of people to sit together and be. Which makes it sometimes difficult when I'm explaining it to people, because people want to know what you do, and we don't do anything. We just are there and we watch the animals. And if people are interested, then we'll take the animals closer. As you can see here, this is Albert, who there'll be some pictures of later on. He is a very experienced Fairy Tales member. And we really allow it to be led by the participant. So for some people, they may have been in the care home for a few years, in the same 4 walls, seeing the same people every day. And to suddenly have a group of people arrive from a farm with lots of animals and, you know, putting all these new things in their face, it might be a bit overwhelming. So we start off with a small pen in the middle of the room, which you'll see some pictures of later. And gradually we bring the animals in, and then we sit back. And what I really encourage my volunteers to do is just to go and sit alongside someone and allow that person to lead it. If they want to talk, great, you can have a conversation. And if they don't want to talk, you can sit in silence and watch the animals. We find that a lot of reminiscence happens. Again, it's not the aim of our project, it's not an intention, but if someone finds that the animals prompt memories, then we want to go with that and allow them to tell their stories. And we have heard some incredible stories. At the moment, we do 2 of these sessions every month. Unfortunately, the care homes, it tends to be in different care homes. Again, I'll come to the challenges of the programme later, but at the moment we're seeing different care homes almost every month because there's only spaces for 2 sessions a month. But they are an absolute joy. Then we have our on-site sessions, which have changed quite a lot over the few years we've been running. Am I talking too fast? No? Okay, good. If I get nervous, I might talk quicker. So the on-site sessions, we're now able to actually run every week, which is great. And they used to be very like the outreach sessions, but just at the farm. But as the project's developed and we formed relationships with elders in the community, we've found that it's changed. We don't want to be providing a service. We want to be opening up a space for people to come and enjoy and for them to choose what they want to do. So now it's a club, and the volunteers, the elders, the animals are all members of the club. So it puts us all on an equal level. However, we do find that the participants are not necessarily younger. This lady, Irene, is a regular and she's 84. I think she looks very good for her age. But they are more independent, more mobile. They need to be able to get themselves to the farm. We don't have transport, sadly. They tend to come with friends. This is Irene's friend Charlie, who only has 1 day off work a week. He works 6 days a week, and on his 1 day off, he decides he's going to bring Irene to the farm. And he loves the session so much that he comes back every week with her, which I think says a lot. So we connect with local community centres and daycare centres, and actually even some of the residential homes we visit, they have 1 or 2 more mobile residents who now choose to come to these sessions as well. They do tend to be much more task-based. So we do create a space indoors where participants can sit down and spend time with the animals, but we also do some gardening, and we try and teach people a bit more about the animals. So we do health checks for the guinea pigs and the rabbits, trimming their claws, checking their fur, checking their teeth, their ears, their eyes, and that way the people who are coming to the farm are also contributing something to us. What I really don't want this project to be is, oh, you poor lonely old person, let's go and give you an animal. It's not about that. It's actually about there being people in our community that we need to hear from and we need to learn from, and it's about creating a space where they can come and share themselves with us. So there's much more of a group emphasis. Again, I have volunteers, but it tends to be kind of we sit round in a circle and we end up doing things together. Yeah. So those are the 2 types of sessions. Just to give you an idea of the project, it's still very small. We've been running for 2 years and 2.5 years, and 2 years of that has been with funding. So we're just kind of gradually growing. But last year we delivered 31 sessions, and our most exciting thing was that we actually received funding from the NHS. So this was to develop the service as healthcare, as mental health care for people who are suffering from depression and isolation. So the idea was, I don't know if you have something here called social prescriptions. Yeah. So the idea was that we would link up with doctors' surgeries in the area, and a lot of the doctors are overworked and they have people come back again and again and again saying, I need medication, I can't sleep, I need medication, I'm feeling depressed. And actually these are people who just are lonely and want some attention and some nurture, which all of us need. So the idea was that for the doctor, rather than prescribe them with medication, which then leads to a continuation of the problem, they prescribe them some time in the community, and the farm would be one of the options. So it was really, really, really exciting. Something that's quite typical of me is once I have an idea, I imagine where it could be in 5 years' time, and then I expect that to happen now. So it was quite a big learning curve for me to realise that 6 months is not enough time to expect the entire health system in the UK to change. But we did manage to get 81 elders participating in the project over the 6 months. That was 25 referrals we received for the on-site sessions. However, the doctors were quite slow to get into the referral process. So of that 25, quite a lot of them were from the daycare centres. We opened it out so that the daycare centres could also refer. And we had 56 discrete participants, so that's unique participants, in our outreach sessions, which we did across 3 care homes. So what I was saying earlier as well about, at the moment we're doing 2 sessions a month at care homes, but the care homes are changing. With this funding, we were able to just choose 2 care homes. It was 3 because we did 1 extra, but we had 2 care homes that we went back to over 6 months. And we noticed such a huge difference. I had the same volunteers going to the same care home and working with the same residents 3 times in a row, and it was a huge difference. The only reason we're not doing that now is because of the funders. We kind of have to fit them a little bit. We found that in all of our sessions, the ones at the farm and the outreach ones, 50% of our participants came more than once. So they wanted to come back. And in the outreach sessions, 25%, so a quarter of them, came to every single session that was available, which, considering this is in a care home where there's very high levels of dementia and attendance was voluntary, they weren't made to come to the sessions, that was a real encouragement for us. So off the back of this project, we got some more funding and were able to set up this weekly club, because what I was really looking for was a consistent group where we could get people coming again and again. And ideally, we want people to come to us for two reasons. One, humans aren't supposed to just stay in one place between four walls all the time. There's a lovely phrase in English, I don't know if you have something similar in Hebrew, that says if we were meant to stay in one place, we would have roots instead of feet. Is that, no?
There isn't something good.
Okay, but did that, yeah, that makes sense, I hope. No? Nothing
It
like
makes
that.
sense, but
Okay.
a lot of sense.
So that's kind of how I feel about the care situation in the UK is we don't have roots. We're not supposed to stay in one place. People are supposed to be going out and enjoying the outside world. Equally, I don't think animals should be transported around in cars. It's not really what animals are there for. So in my dream world, we would not take the animals out to care homes. The care homes would already have animals and they would come to the farm all the time. But in the meantime, whilst we're trying to kind of spread the word and show people what the project is, we take the animals out to them. So we now have our on-site club sessions, and I'm just going to show you, this is Richard and Victoria. They have become two regulars at the farm. They both live in a care home that's about 10 minutes away from the farm. Victoria has quite advanced dementia, and when we went to the care home, it was the first time we went to deliver a session with the animals. And one of the carers said to me, "Oh no, don't worry with, she can't understand anything. Don't worry." So I thought, well, that everyone can understand something. If you're alive and awake, you can understand something. And she responded very, very well to the animals. And we all noticed that she was really smiling, and you can see here she's got a beautiful smile. And a week later, I received an email from Victoria's daughter saying that Victoria loved the session, that she'd spoken about the animals, and that her daughter had challenges with the care home and was a bit worried about her mum and how much kind of activity she was getting. So I told her about the sessions and said, if you're able to bring your mum to one of the sessions at the farm, why don't you bring her here? She's very mobile. She just has memory impairment, but she's very able to walk about and get to places. So her daughter brought her to the sessions and absolutely loved it, but her daughter can't keep bringing her. So eventually we managed to get the care home to agree, and now one of the staff at the care home walks Victoria to the session each week. And Richard then came with her, and they both now come every single week. It turns out Victoria used to live on a farm and work on a farm and had 10 horses. And when we took her to the donkeys, within minutes she was grabbing the hay and feeding it to them. And when we tried to tell her how to do it, she laughed at us. And you can see her here feeding the rabbits. And what's really lovely is that she dresses up to come to the farm because it's an occasion to. I don't know if you can see her necklace here and her dress, and every time she comes she has a new outfit with these lovely flowers on. So these are some of the guinea pigs getting ready to go in an outreach session. You can see we have our, in England these have the nickname granny trolley because lots of old ladies use these for their shopping, so we like that we use that to go to the care homes. That has all of our props in. And these are 3 of our male guinea pigs on their way to a session. This is just to give you an idea of what the setup looks like. We don't just take the animals, we also take lots of props. Not everyone likes animals, that's fine. Not everyone has that immediate response to them. Some people just want to look at the photos, some people want to smell things, some people want to feel straw, so we try and make it a kind of full sensory experience. We normally have this linked together, it's just that week we wanted to take one of the females to show, and so we needed to keep the males and females separate. And we always make sure that we have a hiding place for them as well, so they're not overwhelmed. So here are some of the props that I was telling you about. So we have essential oils. We used to take fresh herbs, but the smell, sometimes for people at the end of their life, the sense of smell is starting to go, and we found that essential oils are much stronger. We take seeds, we've got some wool, fur and other seeds, and these are some lovely little toys that I got given when I was in the States, but they're also a very good way of showing people how to hold the animal. Again, for someone who doesn't have much use of their hands or their fingers, to just hand them a chicken can be a bit overwhelming. So we sometimes start off by using a small toy to help them. Okay, and just to give you a little bit of an idea about, I said the project was quite small. So we only have one member of staff at the moment, which is me. I'm the project manager. But the project is run through the farm, where we have about 10 members of staff, but they all run their own projects. So in a minute I'll tell you a bit more about the farm. But we are hoping to expand the project and develop more of a therapeutic program, which is really something that I started to think about after having been to the States and now coming here and seeing other projects and kind of thinking how we can develop ours. So we are reliant on volunteers. I've got about 15 at the moment. They're all recruited through the farm, and they have to go through quite a rigorous process because they need to have the training for the farm first, and we need to make sure that they're very reliable, and then they need to come through and have training specifically for this project. Which can make it quite difficult because people's time is always changing. Someone signs up to volunteer, and by the time they're ready to volunteer, they've got a job. There's lots of challenges there. But what I've been really, really lucky with is I've found that every single person who's drawn to this project is an incredible person. And I've had some really wonderful volunteers. So this is 3 volunteers on a training day. This is an activity where we get them to draw something in a mirror, but you can't see the piece of paper that you're drawing on. It's a bit like when you try and do your hair in the mirror and you try and move in one direction and it goes in the other. It gives you a very good idea of what it can be like when you expect yourself to be able to do something and you can't, and it's so frustrating. And we find, interestingly, with this activity, some people find it really funny and laugh and just kind of find the whole thing hilarious. Some people get really frustrated and really angry and say, oh, this is stupid and I'm not doing it. And some people get really embarrassed and apologise and keep saying sorry. And other people are determined and they are going to finish it, and they go very quiet and they sweat and they look really concentrated. And so it's just a wonderful way of getting people to discuss the impact of what happens when our brain doesn't work as we want it to, and how we might respond in lots of different ways. So I always ask my volunteers to think of this activity when they're handing someone a piece of grass or a guinea pig or a photo and expecting someone to have an instant response. So yeah, I really enjoy that activity. I would get you all to try it, but I don't know if there's time. Maybe later. Yeah, so you have to draw a star, but in between 2 other stars. So you kind of have to draw in between something, and you're looking in a mirror, but you can't see what you're doing. So you have to do it all in a mirror, and yeah, that's why the other one was holding the paper. And here are 3 of my volunteers before a session. So volunteers come to the farm an hour before a session begins. They help me get the props ready and the animals ready, but we always make sure that we have 15 minutes or so to just sit down with the animals first, give them a health check before we go, but also just for the volunteers to have that experience of being with the animal. Because I find if we don't have time to do this, the volunteers get to the session and have that kind of, I suppose it's quite common if you're in your 20s or 30s and living in London, and you get there and think, what do we have to do? Right, I'm going to do this, and we just want to slow everything down. So we make sure that we have time for the volunteers to be with the animals for a bit. I don't know if you can actually make them out, but there are three little guinea pigs there. And you can see the nail trimmers here. And this is one of our other really lovely volunteers. Generally, the volunteers just help with the sessions. I would love to have some help with the promotion of the project, with fundraising, with report writing, but at the moment it requires a lot of management, and I'm only paid 2 days a week, so I don't have that much time to run the project. But bit by bit, as volunteers know the project better, they're able to take more on. So this is one of my oldest volunteers, well, longest running volunteers, who is now working on kind of promoting the project and going out and speaking to communities about it. And this is her with an award that we won this year for opening up green spaces. So, I'm not keeping time, so I hope you are.
You can speak as long as you want.
When Yoni asked me if I'd talk, I said, yeah, that's fine. And then he said, okay, I've put you for an hour. And I wrote back saying, no, I can't talk for an hour. And he said, yeah, you can, you'll be fine. So here we go. So that's kind of what the project is. Just to give you a bit of background, Yoni said that I like telling stories, which is true. And I just thought, for this kind of project, everyone who I've met who does this kind of work has an interesting backstory. So I thought I'd share mine with you. So this is me when I was very little. And this is someone that I used to call my twin. So Yoni spoke to you about families and relationships. I grew up in a family with 2 older sisters. They're 3 years older, and they're twins. And my mother was a twin, and my grandfather was a twin, and my great aunt was a twin. But we also have this very strange history because my mother's twin brother died when they were 8 years old in an accident, and it obviously affected the family hugely. And the way that they dealt with it, the way that my grandparents dealt with it, was we don't talk. We just don't talk about it. He's gone, we don't talk about it. Which obviously had a huge impact on my mother. And my grandfather, who was a twin as well, also lost his twin when he was in his 40s. And his way of dealing with that was, we don't talk about it. So there was this kind of locked-in story. And I think when I was born, a lot of that was probably passed on to me without being talked about. But I grew up with this feeling that you have to have a twin. And if you don't have a twin, something is a bit strange. But I also grew up with this feeling of you don't have to have a twin. You have to be on your own, and you don't need anyone, and you have to do everything on your own. So it was very confusing. So when I was 6 months old and we got this dog, it was perfect. So I had my twin, but I was still on my own. And I was also very jealous because my sisters were twins, and they would spend all their time together, playing together, and they always had each other. So my solution was, this is my twin. And what's quite funny is that I thought that no one would know that we weren't twins. I thought it was just obvious because I said he was my twin. But Charlie was 6 months younger than me. So I used to sit with Charlie and say, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone that you're 6 months younger, because if you do, they'll know that we're not twins. So I grew up with a real love of animals, and I found every single person that I met in the States who works in this field, everyone I've met so far here, I say to them, how did you get into this work? And they say, well, I've always loved animals, so me too. Then I obviously went to school, went on through school, and I got very interested in academia. I like to think a lot, and I ended up doing philosophy, which then led me into language teaching because I like to travel. And then I studied visual communication because I like arts. And then I studied some art therapy because I wanted to work more with people. But I started thinking, I'm doing lots and lots and lots of different things, and none of it made much sense. And then I realised it did. It was all about communication. And it's funny that you mentioned telling stories, because I realised everything that I was doing was about meeting people, telling stories, hearing stories, and really that went all the way back to my childhood and the importance of having someone to share your story with. So then, after all this travelling and teaching English, I moved back to London, and this is where I moved to. This is Tower Hamlets. Do any of you know Tower Hamlets? No? East London? Yeah, this is East London, home of the Cockney. As you can see, there is a big division between poverty and wealth. So here is Canary Wharf, where all of the banks are. Yeah, and here is Tower Hamlets. It's the same borough. We have the same funding, the same council, but there's a huge gap. It's the second most deprived borough in London. It's the third most deprived borough nationally. So there are quite a lot of problems. It's also a really multicultural area. So we have lots of different people from all different walks of life living in a small space. When I moved there, I really, really struggled. I love being with animals, I like being out in nature, I like seeing new things, and this really challenged me. And I felt quite cut off, quite depressed, quite lonely, and everyone said that it was important to be successful and make money, and I didn't really understand it. So I had to find my own ways of living there. And for me, that was finding somewhere green, and finding somewhere with animals, and luckily I found this place. This is in here, which I think is amazing. So people think of, Londoners tend to think this is what's available to them, but this is there. So just to give you a real close-up, that's Tower Hamlets. That's the farm in Tower Hamlets. So I started volunteering here. And funnily enough, I decided everything I was doing in my life was about getting a job, getting somewhere, getting qualifications, achieving. So I thought I will have one day a week when I just go to the farm, and I'll be with the animals, and I'll be outdoors, and I won't think about projects and work and ideas. And then I went to the farm, and in a few months I started a project. Which was because of this man. So this is my grandpa, who I mentioned earlier, who was a twin. I should just say, this isn't a very cute story. I did not have a relationship with this man. He did not talk about anything. I couldn't talk to him. And he wasn't that interested in having a close relationship. But he had a very, very impressive brain. He was an engineer, and he was incredibly intelligent, and I had a lot of respect for him, and I was quite scared of him. And then he got dementia, and he became this child, and he was very vulnerable, and I was allowed to touch him and stroke his hair, and he became a completely different person. And I don't really have a huge amount to say about that, other than it had a really big effect on me, seeing this kind of giant become this child, and realising as he was dying, all of those stories that he never told were going to die with him. And all of those stories that affected my life, he would never know about and he would never share. So I started volunteering in some care homes, in some residential homes in London, because I thought, I can't hear his stories, but I can hear other people's stories. And again, I thought, I'm just doing this for my interest, no projects. But then I was going to the farm, and then I was going to a care home, and then back to the farm, and then to a care home. And I noticed this really, really big difference between the farm, which I showed you the picture of, and these care homes, which were very sterile, very clinical. The only sounds really are people talking and then machines, and you know, the beeps of different machines and alarms. And I just thought, I wish I could bottle up the farm and take it in to the care home. So I did. That's my granddad. That's him as an engineer. So that's the farm. It's really nice. I was putting these photos together at the weekend, and it feels very different. I don't know if you had this when you were in the States talking about החיות. It feels really different looking at photos of your place when you're not there, and it made me really happy seeing it. So this is where the project's based, Stepney City Farm. We are the only working farm in London. So there are other city farms, but they're like petting zoos. We decided a few years ago that we were going to be a working farm because everyone where we live eats meat, but they don't know what meat is. They know what a chicken is, but they don't really link that with chicken that you buy in the supermarket. They know what a pig is, but they don't connect that with sausages. So we're a working farm. These pigs were actually sent to slaughter. Our goats and our sheep are as well, and they are bred for meat. Interestingly, when we tell people that, the people who are shocked and who don't like it are normally the people who eat meat. And the people who think it's a great idea are often vegetarian and think that people should be educated about what it means. Also, I used to be vegetarian, and then when I started working at the farm, I started eating meat because I wanted to support good practice. And these animals are really, really well looked after. So we are a working farm, and a big part of what we do is education. We've got an amazing education team who work with children in the local community and teach them what it is to grow food. And they have a children's garden, and different schools come in. These are some girls who had grown these beans and are now proudly showing them. We have a huge volunteering programme. Like I said, there's only 10 members of staff. So we have about 100, 150 volunteers who come and help with the garden, help with the animals. They are incredible. We have some really wonderful people. We get a lot of people who are on benefits, so they don't have work, and they come to us. They may have drug or alcohol addictions or mental health problems, and they're able to find work through coming to us. This is our garden. You can see, again, you can see a big difference to the area around it. And a few years ago, we opened a cafe, which was another big step because this allows us to start getting our own income. All volunteer run again, and we try and use as much produce that we grow on the farm in the cafe. So yeah, we can kind of complete the cycle. Okay. And we have rural arts. So we have a pottery workshop, a woodwork workshop, and of course we have all of our animals. So that's the farm. When I got there and was volunteering, I also had, so I'd gone into the care homes and noticed that they were quite still places. I also came to this incredibly lively place and met the volunteers, met the children, but you might notice from the pictures, I didn't really see anyone over the age of 50. There was no one older in the community coming there. So I also thought, why are we not doing anything with the elders in this community? Just to give you a quick idea, in Tower Hamlets, the borough that I showed you, we have 25,000 people over the age of 60, and about 40% of them live on their own. 80% of people living in care homes in the UK have some form of dementia or memory problems. And we have the number of people aged 60 is predicted to pass 20 million by 2031. So we've got this kind of growing need for people who aren't really being cared for. Also, in London, the cost of care is 14% higher than in the rest of the UK. Just to give you an idea, one of the care homes that we work with, they have 40 residents there. Their budget each week to provide the activities for 40 people is £20. I don't know how much that is. It's 100 shekels? Yeah, and that's for 40 people for a week, to entertain them, to engage them, to give them something to be excited about. It's nothing, exactly. So there's a really, really huge need for activities and for also for younger and older generations to spend time together and to have other ways of communicating that don't just rely on, words. So this is why our project works, or at least what we've noticed. This is why it's so important that we don't just go in and chat to them, but we take animals and we take in materials. There's the cognitive element. So this is a space for people to tell their stories. You saw the picture of Irene earlier. She is now a regular at the club. She started coming to the club, and then she brought in this picture of her. And this is her when she's a little girl, with a rabbit. It's a bit blurry, but that is a rabbit. She also grew up on a farm. And now she comes and she tells our volunteers how to care for the animals. So it's a space for shared learning. There's also the physical element. So this is in an outreach session. You can see by the photo, you can kind of see how dexterous her hands are and that she's lost mobility, but she can still hold an animal. And we can have people coming into the farm and enjoying the garden. So there's a lot of sensory stimulation, there's some exercise, fresh air, using your hands. And there's the personal impact. So for the elders in the community, they can start coming to the farm and say, I feed these rabbits, I've taught these volunteers something, I belong here. This is actually a focus group that we ran. So once we started getting people coming regularly, we ran sessions with them to ask them what they want to see happen at the farm. And I love this photo because you can just see that Keith is really being listened to and his opinions are really being valued. And there's the social element. This is Gargle. He is the billy goat on the farm and he's quite a charmer, as you can see. And I think something that sometimes gets missed out when people talk about animal-assisted work is laughter. That's probably the best thing about it, is that they make you laugh and they can allow you to connect with your sadness, and then in the next minute you can have a hysterical moment. This woman's great. Every time you take her around the farm, all she wants you to do is take photos of her with the animals. So we have a lot. And like I said earlier, it's participant-led. There's lots of different ways of being engaged. We're not therapy, we're not psychotherapy, we're not education really. These are activities. And I think it's really important to be clear. We just run activities. But there are so many levels that can be engaged. So someone can just sit and watch, they can tell a story, they can feed the animals, they can hold the animals. 5 minutes, have I got? 5 minutes, okay. I thought probably I've got a good audience here, because if you're here, it probably means you believe in this type of work. Even so, I think it's good to say something about evaluation. Because we run activities and because we're very varied, it's very difficult to measure what we do. And one of the main challenges is that how do you show that someone is feeling better about themselves? I heard a really good talk in London where we were talking about measuring well-being, and this lady said it's like trying to measure the wetness of water with a ruler, which I think is true. So it's really hard to do, but we do what we can. So we use a lot of qualitative research. We interview participants, we write down quotes, we take photographs, we run focus groups, we give the staff questionnaires, and we also, whenever possible, we ask healthcare professionals, research professionals, PhD students or other organisations just to come and watch a session, not to do anything special, but just come and watch and give us their feedback. In terms of quantitative, we haven't been able to really successfully use many scales. So again, we measure what we can, and I think attendance is a very simple thing to measure. If people are coming back, then they obviously enjoy it. Well, no one's forcing them to come back. So, and we also measure other opportunities that people have to socialise. So in the care homes, are there any other chances they get to be with animals, to be with 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds? Normally there isn't. Just to give you one of the bits of feedback from our participants, she said, "I've enjoyed the company. I feel like we're old friends and we just met today. Thank you for accepting me." And one of the care home staff told us a month after the session, they said, "The participants were bowled over. One man with dementia still talks about it." So a month later, that made us very happy. This is some of the feedback from a focus group that we gave. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. And we also did a focus group with the volunteers, which was really lovely because it was unexpected. I didn't expect them to give quite the same reasons, but they did. Their main reasons for enjoying the project is that they get to connect with elders, that they make friends, and that they hear stories and memories. And we were also featured in The Guardian, which was a big success. It's a very big British newspaper who wrote an article on us. So we also try and be very open. If anybody wants to come and research us, then they can. And I just wanted to show you a bit of this poem. This is a lady, Sally, who came to one of our on-site sessions. And we asked the participants to take photographs of the sessions and to then help us put together an exhibition of the photographs so that people could come and see what we were doing, but it was led by the participants. And she decided to write a poem, and which she then read out at our event. But I just really love this last bit. "We cuddled the small furry chicks, the bunnies nuzzled with glee. I wanted to capture the moments to take home and enjoy with me." So I think she sums it up quite nicely. Finally, I said I'd talk about the challenges. I've probably got 1 minute to do it in, which is great because I don't like talking about the negative things that much anyway. The challenges, obviously, our organisation tries to do lots of different things. Fairy Tales is one small part of the farm, and we're trying to do a lot of different things. We're working with animals who have very vulnerable and have important needs. We're working with elders who, again, can be quite vulnerable and their needs matter. We're relying on volunteers. So there's a lot of needs to be listening to, and that can be quite challenging. We can't be everything to everyone. We have limited resources. As I said earlier, I do this officially 2 days a week, but it ends up being a lot more. And we don't have much money. So our current funding ends in July, so we already need to start thinking about the next lot. Which means there's this big challenge of a balance. Do I spend my time thinking about the future of the project and how to develop it, or do I just focus on what I'm doing today and delivering a good session? Finally, just thinking about the future of the project, we're really looking at trying to ingrain it in the farm more and build a wider programme to collaborate with perhaps a university or other organisations to get a research project and to start working more closely with the care homes and deliver workshops to the care staff so that they can actually take over the delivery of some of the sessions. Is that my time? Have I got time to really quickly show you a few pictures of the animals?
Yes.
Just because I realised as I put this together that I didn't actually just show you the animals.
And she said that she cannot speak for an hour. Okay, I'm telling you, she can speak for 10 hours and you'll still be alert. Okay.
So just very quickly,
Yes.
very quickly, because I thought these guys are the stars of the show sometimes, and I haven't introduced them, and I would feel sad not doing that. So these are the guinea pigs. This is Jeannie, and what's really lovely about Jeannie is she is now a grandma. These are her daughters, and this is her granddaughter, Dolly. So when we take them to sessions, in terms of Yoni talking about families and connections, we can take 3 generations that live together and eat together and look after each other and really talk about what that means. And this is, you can see we have them from when they're babies, ideally, so we can handle them a lot. And we try and get them used to their transport boxes by putting lots of treats in there so they have positive associations. Our rabbits, you can see them here. This is Albert, who I told you about earlier, who really likes sitting on shoulders, which is entertaining but sometimes a bit irritating. And finally, these are our bantams. People are often surprised that we work with chickens, but bantam chickens are very docile. This is Mabel. And actually they often elicit a very positive response from men because they're seen a bit more as working animals. And there's not kind of the association of being cute and cuddly. And often men really enjoy learning about them and feeding them and kind of feeling active. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you.